Hi, I'm Caden, here with my brother,
Cal,
and you're watching Eating W's.
eat the W.
That's a W. Let's eat one. Let's eat one. That's a W.
On today's episode of Eating W's, we have our NFL Week 16 predictions. But before we jump into our predictions, just a quick update on our head-to-head pick'em game. We both had pretty awful weeks overall last week, considering it's a full slate of games. I picked up 10 points compared to Callan only picking up 9 points. So I get one more point separation, giving me a total of 2 points separating us, and totals of me with 142 and Callan with 140 flat. So it's still so close. I'm inching away just piece by piece, but it is still by no means a good lead.
Yeah, just one game at a time, I had that lead there and got cocky with it and took a couple upsets. Didn't work out, but looking to get back on track this week.
With the full slate of games though, man, really anything can happen to say the least. So starting off with the Thursday night football game of the Jacksonville Jaguars heading to New York to take on the Jets, and Cal and I both have the Jaguars in this one.
Yeah, I mean, Zach Wilson he's not the guy. It seems like he's not the guy. He's not going to be the guy. They almost want to make Mike White the guy, but he's got broken ribs, so he's still out. So it's Zach Wilson for another game. And even though he didn't play terrible, he just doesn't seem comfortable in that offense unless it's chaotic, like you were saying. He thrives on the chaos, and I mean, I don't know how much chaos there's going to be in this game, but I see the Jaguars handling them pretty well with Trevor Lawrence on quite the resurgence.
He really does. Like Cal and I were talking right before we started, and it seems that if Zach Wilson doesn't have the opportunity to improvise, he just can't function. It's like he almost needs that extra added pressure on him, because if you watch when he's just sitting in the pocket clean, it's almost more likely that he misses a throw than when he has to roll out of the pocket and he's on the run to his right. It seems like he's more accurate running to his right than just sitting in the pocket. I don't know if maybe it's that adrenaline that gives him that exceeding level of play or what it is, but I don't think that they're going to have a ton of pressure in this game or a ton of need for improvising in this game. And I don't think that's the only reason they're going to lose, is because they need the improvisation to win. I think the Jaguars overall are just a better team right now. So I got the Jaguars winning this one, but it'll be fun to see the matchup between the number 1 overall pick and the number 2 overall pick of last season. Because I don't think they played last season. I think this will be the first time those two match up against each other. So
I believe so.
That'll be interesting to see on Amazon Primetime Thursday Night Football. So moving on to the Sunday slate of games now, starting off with a divisional matchup in the AFC South with the Houston Texans heading to Tennessee to take on the Titans, and another split here. Callan has the Titans in this one. I have the Texans as my upset. I took the Texans as my upset in this one because it's going to happen eventually that they pick up a win.
They're going to get one.
The last 2 weeks, they took on two of the best teams in football right now in the Dallas Cowboys and then the Kansas City Chiefs, and lost by under a touchdown in both of those games. One of them being in overtime, actually both of them being in overtime, I believe. So they got to pick up a win eventually, and why not do it in a divisional matchup and ruin a divisional opponent's playoff chances? Because if the Jags are able to win this week on Thursday Night Football and then the Titans lose on Sunday to the Texans, the Jags are in prime opportunity to take that AFC South title right out from under the Tennessee Titans. So why not rain on an opponent's parade and finally pick up your big win here, Houston?
Yeah, I feel like the Texans are going to get one, but being a divisional opponent, I don't see the Titans overlooking the Texans like other teams may have. So I just see the Titans and Derrick Henry continuing a monster run against the division and continuing to pick up those wins against the Texans.
Yeah, the Texans do not have much of a defensive line or run defense in general. So the real kryptonite here is if Derrick Henry goes off for 200 rushing yards on him, to say the least.
He very much could. The Texans have one of the worst run defenses in the NFL.
It's possible. Next up, we got the New York Giants heading to Minnesota to take on the Vikings, and we agree again. We both have the Vikings in this one. This is the final home game for the Vikings. Both of their next 2 divisional matchups, next 2 weeks, will be divisional matchups, and they will both be away. So why not finish out the home season on a big win, especially because this is going to be a true test against a playoff team. The New York Giants have more than proved themselves. They are going to be a playoff team. I don't think they're locked in yet, but their percentages are very high, and I believe that they are a playoff team. So it's going to be really fun to see a good test against someone who we might run into again in just a few short weeks once the playoffs start. We were able to go up against a huge test in Buffalo, and we picked up a win there. So I'd be really happy to see the Vikings be able to get another test here and pick up another win. And I think that they will.
Yeah, the big thing here is that the Vikings defense is going to have to shut down Danny Dimes and Saquon Barkley. And Saquon's, has a very strong chance of going over 100 yards. But really, I need the Vikings to win here because it'll help the Packers.
Back to this.
There's a number of games where, again, I picked just based off of what would help out Green Bay get to the playoffs. So, this is one of them. But I do see Minnesota as a better team than the New York Giants, even though the Giants did come off a great divisional win last week, and the Vikings coming off an even greater comeback win. I just see that momentum of the Vikings being too much for the Giants to overcome.
I do not fear Danny Dimes, but I am terrified of Saquon Barkley. He is the X factor in this game. He might come out and just absolutely dominate our defense. But even if that does happen and the Giants are able to go out and put up a good number of points, I still think that our offense is going to be able to take advantage of the weaknesses in that New York defense. They do have that really good pass rush, especially with Kayvon Thibodeau proving himself as a game wrecker last week against the Commanders. But I think that we will be able to neutralize him just enough to take advantage of that little bit of the weakness they have at the corner and secondary position. And maybe even see Jay Jettis go off for another huge 150-plus yard game. Next up, we have another NFC matchup with the Detroit Lions heading to Carolina to take on the Panthers in yet another split. I have the Lions in this one. Callan has the Panthers.
Yep, I need Sam Darnold to go out there and beat the Lions because, well, it helped the Green Bay Packers.
Believe it or not.
And this is a tough one. This one was a tough one to pick, not just because it would help Green Bay, but I think it's a really good matchup. I think it could be a very exciting game. Sam Darnold has shown a bit of a resurgence lately and has played very well for the Panthers since coming off of IR. And the Lions, who did start out 1-6, have won 6 of their last 7 and are now 7-7 and are in that playoff hunt and are a step ahead of Green Bay right now, which is why I need them to lose. So hopefully the Panthers can pull it out and help out the Packers.
As I just mentioned, saying that I truly think that the Giants are a playoff team, I think they are the 6th seed to be more specific. The 7th seed, I think it's the Detroit Lions. I think that they shock the world and they come in and they earn that 7th seed playoff spot. The Lions have just been able to prove how well they can overcome controversy, overcome anything. They're such a resilient team with such a resilient coach in Dan Campbell. So it's going to be great to see if they can actually make it to the playoffs and fulfill this destiny that no one thought that they could actually even come near. But now they're going to do it, which is just crazy to say overall, especially considering, like you said, they started at 1-6 and people pretty much had them X'd off, written off right there. But I think that they have a great matchup here against the Carolina Panthers. The Panthers sometimes show these glimpses of brilliance, like they might actually be a playoff team themselves, especially in that very below stellar NFC South. But then they come out and have other games where they just totally look like they aren't coherent at all. They came out last week and had a great opportunity to continue their run to the playoff against the Pittsburgh Steelers, but just let the Steelers kind of control that game all the way through, to say the least. So I think that the Lions offense is going to be able to come in and play really well against that struggling Carolina defense. and that the Carolina offense just isn't going to be able to keep up with the amount of points that the Lions put up. So next up, we have our game of the week in divisional matchup with the Philadelphia Eagles heading to Dallas to take on the Cowboys in yet another split. I have the Cowboys in this one, and Callan has the Eagles as his upset.
So the Eagles, even though they have the best record in the NFL, are actually underdogs in this game on the sports books, according to FanDuel. And that is that for the reason is that Jalen Hurts will most likely not be playing in this game, and it will be Gardner Minshew, the Mississippi Mudflap. And that is why I picked the Eagles in this one, because he is one of the most exciting quarterbacks to watch play. And then he's going to get a chance to go out there and show what he can do.
Yeah, I love Gardner Minshew. I would love to be able to pick him, but I'm in a pretty close contested pick'em game myself, so I got to pick smart here. I think that Gardner Minshew really does have a chance to come out and play a good overall game, but he's going to come in cold. He's going against a Dallas team who just came off of an embarrassing loss last week and are looking for some vengeance and looking to reprove themselves to the NFL world. It's in Dallas. He's going against Micah Parsons, who has proved to be one of the best defensive players in the league overall. Just too much stacked against Money Minshew, and I think that it's going to be a lot closer of a game than it could be, or should be rather. But nevertheless, I think that the Cowboys do pick up a win here. So moving on to the first of 3 Christmas games, starting with the Packers heading to Miami to take on the Dolphins and another split. I have the Dolphins in this one. Callan has the Packers.
And I picked the Packers here because, well, it helped the Packers if they win. So,
wow, who'd have thought that?
So, with a loss here, it pretty much eliminates us to near astronomical odds. Maybe not, mathematically eliminated, but one of those like 0.6, need 3 ties and 4 losses to happen. Hanging on by a thread, but a loss here really does end our run, and then so we really need the win here. It's going to be our toughest game of the remaining games so far. I believe even tougher than the upcoming Minnesota matchup, just because I think that Minnesota will be playing a little lackadaisical, having most of their positioning locked up. The Dolphins still fighting for a playoff spot, as well as Green Bay. So it's going to come down to our defense here, and if they can contain Tua and Tyreek and Jalen Waddle. And even though our secondary has played better, it'll be a really good test to see how we do. And if we can get to Tua and get some pressure on him and get him to off balance, I think we got a good shot here, because we know that the offense can put up points with Aaron Jones, A.J. Dillon, and the rising emergence of Christian Watson, who could continue to his amazing touchdown performances. And I look for him to do that this week.
See, it's funny because I have the Dolphins in this one for the exact opposite reason. But how do I want to say this? For an opposite reason, but I have a different viewpoint on it from you, because I think that the Packers defense will do just fine shutting Tua down at least. Maybe some of the other pieces of that offense, like Tyreek Hill with his speed, or maybe Raheem Mostert will have another week like he had last week.
I'm terrified of Raheem Mostert. If anybody remembers from the 2019 NFC Championship game, it haunts me to this day. 219 yards put up by that SOB, and he came out of nowhere. And nobody thought that he was going to do it, and he came out and just took control of that game. And I'm terrified that he's going to do it again in Miami.
That was Raheem Mostert. I totally forgot that was him. But I think that maybe Raheem Mostert and those receivers might jab you a little bit on the defensive side, but I think your defense will be okay. I think your offense, the Packers offense, is really going to be the piece that struggles. That Dolphins defense doesn't necessarily have the biggest names or the best play overall, but their defensive coaches there are just so good at scheming against opposing offenses. They're such a well-coached team and a disciplined team. They don't get a ton of penalties. So I think that the Dolphins are going to win, and it's really going to come down to their defense at the end of the day. So just an interesting little flip on viewpoints there. Yeah. But nevertheless, I do have the Dolphins winning. And then for the rest of the matchups for this week, They're all technically primetime. 2 more on Christmas, on the afternoon of Christmas, and Sunday Night Football on Christmas night, as well as the Monday Night Football matchup. They're just all such bad matchups that we didn't really want to talk about them. I mean, your afternoon game with Christmas is the Broncos heading to Los Angeles to take on the Rams. So we're going to see Brett Ripken versus Baker Mayfield. Your Sunday Night Football matchup is the Bucks heading to the Cardinals. So you're going to see the poor decrepit corpse of Tom Brady up against not even Colt McCoy, but Trace McSorley. The Cardinals are all the way down to their third string quarterback and playing on Christmas night, Sunday Night Football. And then your Monday Night Football matchup doesn't have a ton of injuries by any means. You got the Chargers heading to the Colts. But these are just two teams that already kind of have their place locked in. The Chargers are fighting a little bit for a playoff spot, and they're close, but they're still not necessarily up there. And the Colts are already so far out of it and just came off of a demoralizing loss last week, the biggest comeback ever against the Vikings. So it's just kind of interesting to see these as the matchups for all the primetime games for this week.
Yeah, it's really too bad that Christmas has to go out with such a whimper. You're kind of banking on either a Tom Brady performance, which hasn't really happened this year, or you're hoping on possibly like a miraculous sort of upset with Trace McSorley leading the Cardinals over the Bucks, which is very possible with the way that the Bucks have played this year. And even though the Cardinals are not fighting for anything, just being playing spoiler, they still can go out there and play and upset the Bucks, because the Bucks could lose it just by themselves. And then for the Chargers and Colts, I mean, the Colts, how can you even be a football team anymore after what happened? I mean, that's just, you want to talk about, like you said, demoralizing. I can't think of a more demoralizing victory. And how do you come back and play another game and wonder, how can we score enough points to hold the lead when you have 33 points? And when you're up 33 points and you still lose, I mean, what more can you do to ensure a victory? It's just really too bad for the Colts, who still only have one victory under Jeff Saturday, and that's against those Las Vegas Raiders.
Yeah, and it's not even like they get like a give-me game or a little bit more of a balanced opponent to go against this week, the Colts. They get the Los Angeles Chargers, who are a hell of a team, and finally, for once this year, a healthy team. They've been on a tear recently and are very likely just going to absolutely smack them at home. So, man, do I feel bad for Matt Ryan, and I really feel bad for Jeff Saturday having to come into this situation as an intern and just have everything fall apart around him, it seems like. But who knows? Like you said, lots of teams playing spoiler this week, so maybe Indianapolis can be one of those teams. But that is it for our NFL Week 16 predictions. Thank you all so much for watching, and we hope you enjoyed. Maybe hit the like button if you did. But until next time, don't forget
to eat the W.